Two armies, standing face to face, countless warriors, their weapons raised. And among them all stands one whose bowstring, when it sang, made the greatest warriors tremble. His name is Arjuna. But today, something else is about to unfold. Today, from that very hand of Arjuna, his bow is about to fall. The warrior who never once stepped back is about to break before the battle has even begun. Why? This is the question from which the Bhagavad Gita begins. Its first chapter, Arjuna Vishada Yoga, the chapter of Arjuna's sorrow and his despair. Today we begin a new journey together, a scripture spoken by Bhagwan Shri Krishna himself, a wisdom born upon a battlefield, and yet, even now, it becomes the answer to every human life. Come, let us begin. The land of Kurukshetra. On one side, the army of the Pandavas, on the other, the Kauravas. Years of enmity, of injustice, of insult had come at last to stand at their ending. But far from this whole scene, within the palace of Hastinapura, sat a blind king. His name, Dhritarashtra. His eyes had not seen since birth. Yet there was another blindness in him, deeper than this, the blindness of attachment to his sons. He could not see the injustice of his own children, or perhaps he did not wish to see it. Hold this gently in your awareness. The entire wisdom of the Gita is being spoken to a blind king. And the one who speaks it is Sanjaya, to whom the sage Vedavyas had granted divine sight. On one side, the one blinded by attachment. On the other, the one to whom everything is clear. Consider this. Attachment makes us blind, and clear seeing shows us the truth. And it is between these two that the Gita is about to be born. Dhritarashtra asked, O Sanjaya, upon the sacred field of Kurukshetra, gathered and eager for battle, what did my sons and the sons of Pandu do? Notice one thing here. The very first word of the entire Gita is Dharma. Kurukshetra is called Dharma Kshetra, the field of Dharma. And consider this. When do the greatest answers of life come to us? In our comfort or in our crisis? The wisdom of the Gita, too, was not born in some quiet ashram. It was born in the very middle of a battlefield. Because true Dharma is tested only there, where the mind is breaking the most. And in Dhritarashtra's words, his mind could not stay hidden. He said, my sons and the sons of Pandu. This division, this quiet feeling of mine and other, this was the very root of the whole Mahabharata. Sanjaya began to speak. Upon the battlefield, the army of the Pandavas stood arrayed in full formation. Seeing this, King Duryodhana approached his teacher, Dronacharya. Duryodhana said, O Acharya, behold this vast army of the Pandavas. Your own wise disciple Dhrishtadyumna, the son of Drupada, has arranged it. Then he began to name the heroes, mighty as Bhima and Arjuna, Satyaki, Virata, and the great warrior Drupada, Drishtaketu, Chekitana, the king of Kashi, Purujit, Kunti Bhoja, and the noble Shebya, the valiant Yudhamanyu, the brave Uttamauja, Abhimanyu, son of Subhadra, and the sons of Draupadi. All of them great warriors, each one able to stand alone against 1,000. Then he turned toward his own side. O best of the twice born, now hear the chief warriors on our side. You yourself and grandsire Bhishma, Karna and Kripacharya, ever victorious in war, Ashwathama, Vikarna, the son of Somadatta, and Jayadratha, and many more who have set aside even the love of their own lives for my sake. Our army, guarded by Grandsire Bhishma, is boundless. It is unconquerable. And their army, guarded by Bhima, is limited. Therefore, standing each of you in your own place, protect Grandsire Bhishma from every side. Notice this quietly. The one whose army is unconquerable is the very one who keeps saying, "Protect him, protect him." Within arrogance, fear is always hidden. Then the elder Grandsire Bhishma roared like a lion and blew his conch to lift Duryodhana's heart. And at once together sounded the conches, the drums and the horns. From the side of the Kauravas, a great and terrible sound rose into the air. And then, upon that divine chariot, yoked with white horses, sat Bhagavan Sri Krishna and Arjuna. And both of them raised their divine conches. Krishna blew Panchajanya, Arjuna blew Devadatta, and Bhim, the doer of mighty deeds, blew his great conch, Poundra. That vast sound, echoing through the sky and the earth, moved through the hearts of Dhritarashtra's sons. And now came the moment from which the entire wisdom of the Gita would be born. Arjuna, upon whose chariot banner sat Hanuman himself, lifted his bow, and he said to Krishna, "O Achyuta, place my chariot between the two armies. I wish to see who stands here, eager for this war, with whom it is that I must fight in this great battle." Consider this scene. That same Krishna, who holds all of creation within his hands, stands today as the charioteer of Arjuna. When the divine itself becomes the charioteer of your life, then however hard the path may be, the direction is never lost. Krishna brought the chariot and placed it right in the middle, before Bhishma, before Drona, before all the kings. And he said, "O Partha, behold, these Kurus gathered here." Arjuna raised his eyes, and what he saw shook him to his very depths. Before him stood his own grandfathers, teachers, uncles, brothers, sons, grandsons, friends, fathers-in-law and kinsmen. In both armies, only his own. Everywhere, only his own. Those with whom he had grown up playing, in whose laps he had passed his childhood. Today, against these very ones, he had to raise his weapon. Arjuna's heart filled with sorrow. Sinking into grief, he said, "O Krishna, seeing my own kinsmen present here for war, my limbs grow weak, my mouth is drying, my body trembles, and my hair stands on end. My Gandiva bow slips from my hand, my skin burns, I cannot even stand. My mind seems to wander, and O Keshava, everywhere I look, I see only ill omens, only signs of misfortune." This is the very moment through which all of us pass at some time, when duty pulls us one way and attachment pulls us the other. When the mind says this must be done, but the heart trembles and whispers, "I cannot do this." Arjuna began to open the feelings of his mind. "O Krishna, in killing my own kinsmen, I see no good at all. I want no victory, no kingdom, no pleasure. Those for whom we desire kingdom and joy, the very teachers, fathers, sons, grandfathers, uncles, fathers-in-law, and relatives stand here upon this battlefield, having renounced even the love of their own lives and their wealth. O Madhusudana, even if they should kill me, still I do not wish to kill them, not for the rule of the three worlds. Then what is there to say of this earth? How would killing them ever bring us joy? In killing these aggressors, only sin would cling to us. They, blinded by greed, see no fault in the destruction of a family. But O Janardana, we see it. Then why should we not turn away from this sin? With the destruction of a family, the eternal traditions of that family are destroyed. When tradition is destroyed, unrighteousness spreads through the whole family. When unrighteousness rises, the honor of the family begins to break. And when honor breaks, the whole order of a society falls apart. And this breaking leads even those who destroyed the family toward their own downfall. The ancestors to whom we offer water and offerings with reverence, even that act is lost. The tradition of the family, the way of righteousness, all of it is laid to waste. O Krishna, what sorrow this is! In our greed for the pleasures of a kingdom, we have risen to commit so great a sin. Better it would be if I set down my weapons, if I offer no resistance and let the sons of Dhritarashtra, weapons in hand, strike me down. That would be far more for my good. Sanjaya said. Having spoken this, Arjuna, overcome with sorrow, set aside his bow and his arrows and sank down upon the seat of the chariot in the middle of the battlefield. That Arjuna, before whose bow even the gods once trembled, today that same bow had slipped from his own hand. But now, understand one thing gently and carefully. Listen again to all of Arjuna's reasons. The destruction of the family, the fall of Dharma, the killing of kinsmen, the fear of sin. Notice how righteous they all sound. Notice how full of compassion they seem. But what lies at the root of these reasons? Is it duty or is it attachment? Arjuna speaks the language of Dharma, yet he speaks it from his own attachment. This is the deepest deception of the mind. It dresses even our own weakness in the robe of Dharma. And here, the first chapter of the Gita comes to its end. With a quiet wonder, for in this entire chapter, Bhagavan Sri Krishna did not speak a single word. The name of this chapter is Arjuna Vishada Yoga. Vishada means sorrow, despair. But the question is this: why is sorrow called yoga? Because this very sorrow, this very breaking, became the doorway through which all the wisdom of the Gita was about to appear. As long as Arjuna held himself to be a great warrior, he had no need of any teaching. But the moment he broke and bowed and said, "I understand nothing," in that very moment, the door of wisdom opened. And this is the truth of our own lives too. As long as we hold ourselves to be complete, we learn nothing. But the moment we bow, the moment we ask, in that very moment, the Krishna within us begins to speak. So now, Arjuna has sat down, the bow has fallen, the mind has surrendered. His reasons stand dressed in the robe of Dharma, but within there is only attachment. In the next chapter, when this same Arjuna takes refuge at the feet of Krishna, then will begin that wisdom which taught humanity how to live, age after age. Then will begin the true voice of the Gita. This was the story of the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. If this reflection has reached your heart, stay with us on this quiet journey. If this contemplation and this gentle unfolding of the scriptures brings you a moment of stillness, then stay connected with Sarv consciousness. Here, we return to the timeless wisdom of the scriptures, softly, one breath at a time.